If you've seen our most recent video where we took everyone on a very enthusiastic tour of our brand new RV, I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to learn that this is not the next video that we planned to release. So since I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail and the title of this video, you know that we've been through quite an experience. I want to start by saying we are okay. Our rig was not severely damaged, but we have had quite an experience.
We're here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, visiting with Peter's cousins, which so far had been really, really nice up to last evening. And we were here in the RV after having had a nice time with them when the weather turned suddenly.
Now, we are mooch docking in my cousin's driveway. They have a large, heavily treed property. And right now there is, of course, an intense heat wave going through this part of the country. And the forecast last night was for rain and thunderstorms and a tornado watch for the possibility that tornadoes could form as part of those thunderstorms. And so around
about 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock or right before 11 o'clock last night, it started raining quite hard.
And there was a lot of flashing of lightning. We were on the couch looking out the windows, sort of in awe of Mother Nature's fury, so to speak. But
yeah, we didn't realize how furious it was going to get. We were kneeling on the recliners in the slide out, looking out the window and watching the lightning flash
quite vigorously
above the trees, a lot of it. And then suddenly, at about 11:05 or so, without much warning, the winds suddenly picked up. Within about 30 seconds, it was raining so hard and so much debris flying through the air that it sounded like we were in a really bad hailstorm, or like we were being pelted with rocks by 100 people standing around us. And I looked out the window and my cousin's workshop is 50 feet away right outside, and I almost couldn't see it. It was so completely hidden.
It looked more like you were looking out into a washing machine, a front-loading washing machine with water and leaves and everything swirling right at the RV.
Yeah, everything started to spin, and you could see the action of the wind swirling around, and it suddenly got so violent the rig started shaking, and we're like, oh no. And before we could really grasp what was happening, there was a huge crash as a tree crashed down on top of the RV. Now, we freaked out a little bit. I freaked out a little bit. It
was
very
shocking.
Partly because the violence of the wind was so extreme, and it was now continuing.
And the rain was coming harder, and the wind was getting worse, and it just seemed like that was just the beginning. The first tree sort of falling and hitting onto the RV was potentially just the beginning of what was going to get even worse.
We didn't have any idea at that point if the roof had opened up. It clearly smashed down on the top of the roof, and we couldn't tell whether water was going to start pouring in or not. And the fact that it continued with such intensity, we were expecting more trees to come down on top of us at any second, and it just wouldn't let up.
It felt like forever.
It felt like it would not stop, and it was actually really frightening, and it was fairly traumatic because we were sure that our new RV had just been destroyed, and
potentially worse was coming.
Yeah, we were now expecting that we might be next because we're surrounded by trees here.
And it was almost even more frustrating because with the weather as bad, I mean, there's a relative safety in a much larger house just right within walking distance, but there was no way we were going outside of this RV in the maelstrom that was just swirling around us at the time. It would have been way more dangerous.
And my cousin's wife texted, and she saw, when she looked out the window, there was a tree on our RV, and she was in a panic and texted us, and with what was going on here, we didn't reply back right away.
I don't think I even heard the ding.
I don't think so. And she really was terrified that we were out here and they thought they were going to be taking us to the hospital or worse. So when things quieted down a little bit, after about maybe 15 minutes or so, we went outside to survey the damage. And it was hard to tell at first just how badly we had been damaged. And our truck Also, we could see outside there was a tree down partly on the back of the truck, but we just couldn't tell how bad.
Well, and looking out the window, once things sort of calmed down and you could actually see again, the tree that had hit the RV had rolled off and was sitting on top of the A-frame, right up on the tongue. And so I couldn't tell, because we couldn't see when it actually happened, if maybe the tree had just fallen and hit the A-frame up front, and that had felt like it had hit the RV.
Oh, I knew it had hit the roof.
I was hoping beyond hope that it was not something that had actually hit the top.
Yeah, you said that you were so like mesmerized, if nothing else, by the swirling winds. It was clear that they were circling. The winds were clearly had strong rotation, and
I was definitely fixating on the idea that this was just the beginning and that there was a funnel coming, and who knew what was going to happen to the RV at that point. We were getting ready to grab my knees and
hit the floor,
and assume the crash position.
Kiss your butt goodbye, you know. So we went out, and here's what we found. This tree snapped off and just missed the back of the truck. Came down over here and smashed down onto the top of the RV while we were inside. And destroyed our propane tank cover and tumbled the 2 propane tanks there, and hit the roof and smashed the 2 front solar panels. We're exhausted right now because we barely
Sweaty messes.
Yeah, we barely got any sleep. We're filthy and sweaty because we've been outside cutting up
and
trees and dragging trees out of the way to free the RV. So here's what happened to us. The tree came down on the front of the roof, and luckily the main part of the trunk did not hit the roof, but some of the larger branches did, and 1 or 2 of those branches hit the front solar panels and shattered them both, and hit them so hard they bent them down around the frames. They bent the frames around the rails.
Yeah.
So this tree right here, which no longer has a top and snapped right off, is the one that almost got us. And actually we were so incredibly lucky, because when it broke and came down, it landed right behind our truck and actually hit it. And we can't tell if there's a little scratching or minor damage, but obviously if we had been parked about 3 feet back, we wouldn't have a bed in our truck anymore. This tree would have crushed it. And the other end of it is what hit us. And as crashingly loud as it was when it came down, we were so incredibly lucky that we only took a glancing blow. It doesn't appear to have damaged the structure of the RV. It obviously hit the front of it and took out our propane tanks, and hit the top of the rig and broke the front 2 solar panels. It bent them down, which I guess maybe that's a reason to have solar. Protects your roof from impact. I will get up on the roof and show you what it looks like up there. But the front 2 panels are toast. You can see the front one bent, and this one back here, you can see how it's pressed down onto the rail below the other one. So up here on the roof, you can see where the solar panels were smashed. Bent the sides of this down good, shattered the glass. Obviously this isn't structural and can be replaced, which is good. The rest of the roof is untouched. Just this other panel here that got hit, shattered the glass and bent it down. Also had the first most obvious thing was that the cover for the propane tanks had been completely shattered, and there were pieces of it everywhere.
And the tanks were all over the place. I mean, they were just knocked out of place. The one had the pigtail where it attached to the tank was broken off and just sitting there. And luckily,
they were kind of tumbled over on their side. It had hit them so hard that they literally bounced up and tipped over onto its like on a diagonal, out of place, broke them out of the holder. When the tree hit this cover on the propane tanks, not only did it smash it and throw pieces around, but it knocked the tanks out of place and even completely disconnected one of them. Knocked it completely out. The hose disconnected. Luckily, the safeties on there prevented there from being a propane leak, and we immediately shut the tanks off as soon as we came out and saw what had happened. We didn't know what else had gone on. We didn't know if there was other damage. We were expecting there to be a hole in the roof at the very least, or shattered fiberglass.
And there was debris all along the side of the slide out. It was all wet and stuck to the side of the slide, and part of the seal that seals the slide when it comes in against the wall was ripped out of its fitting basically and just dangling there. So again, we didn't know whether or not when it hit, it may have done damage to the slide and slide mechanism. Just couldn't tell in the dark.
So somehow one of the limbs that came down when it, I think after it bounced off the solar panel and went down, it either bounced up or hit the ground in such a way that it came back up. And the main damage we sustained to the RV itself actually isn't so bad, because it was just to the
there's like a metal sort of a skirt that just creates the shape of the bottom of the RV.
Down underneath, it's not fiberglass, it's actually like a skirting right up in the front near the tongue, and it hit with such force it completely bent it up underneath the side of the RV. But it's a separate piece, not part of the fiberglass shell, and that probably is easily replaced. So down here, not only can you see the bent frame of the solar panel, but you can see the amount of debris that was thrown up underneath from below. And that branch came down, and it didn't damage the side of the RV, but there's debris all over it. It pulled out the weather stripping down at the bottom here. We've already put that partly back in place, but then this branch down here apparently bounced off the ground and hit this area under here and bent the underside up, knocked off the marker light there, but this is all bent in now here, but it doesn't seem to have gotten high enough there to do any body damage. It's just that panel at the bottom. So what we've been doing today is getting ourselves in a position where we could function and drive and continue moving, because we're planning to leave here tomorrow morning. And that meant we had to inspect the damage, look for further problems that we hadn't discovered last night, and kind of take apart the two propane tanks and inspect to see. And as it turns out, solar panels are apparently more valuable than for collecting sun, because they act as a buffer for a large impact.
Particularly being up on the rails, we think it had a big impact on, no pun intended, on preventing the tree. It basically was like a giant shock absorber. So the solar panels absorbed some of it, and then the rails themselves just helped to distribute that impact, you know, along the roof line instead of just in that one spot. And that helped to prevent any other punctures or anything else. And since those are modular, I mean, it's just one module, plug and play MC4 connectors. Those are easy to replace.
There are no punctures in the roof at all. There's no fiberglass damage other than a tiny little
2-inch long
crack in the gel coat right at the very top of the front cap. so minor that what we've done with that for now is we put a piece of clear packing tape over it to keep it from getting any moisture in it until we can get that taken care of, but it's almost impossible to even see it. The only other super minor damage that happened is tiny little cuts in a couple of the decals right near the front of the driver's side from the branches that came down and scraped along the RV after it bounced off the roof, basically. Maybe this is a testament to having a fiberglass RV, the fact there is no damage or scratching in the gel coat. Maybe it's a testament to the quality of outdoors RVs. We're not sure, but we're grateful that it was really so minor and the shell is 100% intact. We thought, well, this is it. Our RVing is over for the time being, but again, we were very lucky. So what we did was we have 1,500 watts of solar in 2 strings of 750 each, 3 panels on each.
Each in series and then parallel together.
Right. So what we've done is we took the MC4 connectors from those broken panels, removed them, and then went directly into the junction box to come down into the RV. So we now have 1,000 watts of solar.
The reason it was so important to disconnect the 2 damaged solar panels was because of the fact that they may have internally shorted. And even though immediately after it happened, we shut off the breaker from the solar panels to make sure that there was no current flowing through the system, and we are parked here under the shade, so even when it is daylight, we're not getting full light on the panels. We wanted to make sure that there was no potential for the other panels to basically backfeed into them and cause some kind of a short or overheating or a fire. So disconnecting those 2 panels from the system was important just from that perspective.
Yeah, once the glass shatters, there could be shorting inside the panel, and it's very important that we don't use it and take it out of the system right away.
So that was the impetus for doing that. And then once we were up there, we realized we were going to be able to rewire the remaining panels to make sure that we could get our 1,000 watts of solar from what was left.
After we rewired that, we realized that driving down the highway with shattered glass flaking off all over the highway and ourselves and other vehicles was a bad idea. So we've removed those solar panels, and we took those and the smashed propane tank cover, went to the dumpster, and we borrowed my cousin's pressure washer to thoroughly pressure wash off everything so we could really inspect. It was so amazing how much debris there was in unreal places up underneath the solar panels that weren't affected, that weren't broken. There was just debris plastered all on the underside from the force of the wind, and it all came from this side. It came off the river and blew in this direction.
All of the trees on the property are all blown down in the same, general directions. Many of them huge trees that literally were just uprooted and fallen.
So we feel very lucky because my cousin has suffered much worse damage than we have now. Fortunately, so far, it looks like nothing came through the roof of their house or my cousin's shop, but massive trees all over the property,
giant
all
oaks.
fell in the same direction. Huge oak trees that if one of those had fallen on us,
there's a
RV,
tree right there. I mean, that tree right there could have been the one that went, and we'd be toast.
Our RV would have been destroyed, and we could have been injured or killed by these trees. They're obviously, an RV is not going to hold up to the tens of thousands of pounds of weight of a large mature oak tree. So we consider ourselves super lucky. We walked around the property with our cousin surveying the damage this morning, and it's stunning what happened to their property.
We're all in shock, I think, still. It's just hasn't really processed yet what really happened.
So we have put the solar system is back in place with 2/3 of the solar, and the solar panels will be easy to replace. The rail system that Tom from MYT installed on the roof made it so easy. Loosen 4 bolts, unplug the MC4 connectors, take it off, put 2 bolts back in place, and we're good to go. When it comes to the propane tanks, we can't use one of them because the pigtail's broken, but the other one is still available to us. It's a 30-pound tank. We have plenty of propane. So we've got 2/3 of our solar, 50% of our propane. Everything else is
half of our life has been cut out.
I think we both lost several years off our lives we won't know that for a while, I guess.
That's right.
But we wanted to let everyone know what happened. And we are going to be very busy, I think, over the next several days, kind of getting things back in place and recovering. We thank you in advance for any good wishes that anyone wants to leave in the comments down below. And we apologize if we can't do our usual very responsive replies to those. I think we're going to be a little busy. I also don't think we've both fully processed yet how traumatizing this was. It was truly terrifying.
I was prepared to be swept off to Oz. I mean, seriously.
I just, when that crash happened, it was so frightening because first I thought that our new RV had been destroyed, but then the fact that the weather didn't stop right away, I was sure the next one was going to come down on top of us. And it was scary. Thank you for watching and sharing in our experience. We will have, of course, lots more videos. I think the next one that will probably come out after this will be a full tour with Tom from MYT Solar and his wife Ellie, where they talk about
of the pre-catastrophe solar system.
The great solar system that now 2/3 is left. So we will get the rig fixed, of course. We'll reinstall the panels and get a new cover for the propane tanks and
pigtail and all that stuff.
Everything else that's needed to make it 100%.
We feel very lucky that it was not more major.
We're very lucky and grateful that we are okay. Our cousins are okay. And nobody was hurt. We know that's the most important thing. So thank you so much for watching. As always, and more than ever, safe travels. We'll see you next time.